What's up you guys? It's Trashy here, and today we are back with another speed build. We are going to be working on building Rapunzel's tower from Tangled. Now, I've been working on a collaboration with Caffeinated Sims and Pixie Simster. They are also Simmers in the Simmers group chat along with me, and this was part of our monthly collaboration together where we had to create a heroine, a hero, and some kind of build like their castle or something like that that they live in. Links to their videos for this collaboration will be down below, along with a link to their YouTube channels. You guys really should go check them out. They're amazing. Now, the way we decided to go about this collaboration was that Caffeinated Sims was going to tell us the real story of Rapunzel, like the Brothers Grimm version of Rapunzel. And we're kind of going to be relating that to Tangled in a sense. And then Pixie Simster created Flynn Rider from Tangled, and she's relating his backstory to the Brothers Grimm version story of the prince. You guys really should go check them out. I, on the other hand, am looking at Mother Gothel, or the witch in the Brothers Grimm version. Now, I'm not going to be telling you the full story of the witch in the Brothers Grimm version, but I'll be touching on a few pieces from that version of the story. If you want to hear the full story, please go check out Caffeinated Sims video. But let's start off with the very beginning. How did Rapunzel end up with the witch? Rapunzel's father actually came across the witch's garden, and he stole some fruit for Rapunzel's mother. Well, so that way the witch would not kill Rapunzel's father. They traded Rapunzel for his life, basically. And so that's how Rapunzel ended up in the witch's care. And what's really different from Tangled's version, if I'm remembering correctly, Rapunzel didn't actually get locked away in the tower until she was 12. You know, that's about the age that puberty starts to hit and young girls start to develop into a woman. And the witch became overly protective of Rapunzel. And let's face it, Rapunzel is basically a giant metaphor for you can't protect everybody, or you can't protect somebody from everything. So, but of course, the witches plan to protect Rapunzel from the outside world and from like men and everything like that. Of course, it backfires, and a prince happens to find the tower and visits Rapunzel. Of course, the witch doesn't find out about this until Rapunzel and the prince are expecting a baby. Once the witch finds out about this, she bans Rapunzel into the forest, basically, and she blinds the prince. I'm not going to tell you how. You can find that out from Caffeinated Sims. But the prince is now blinded, so they're separated by the fact that the prince cannot see her to be able to find her. Of course, you know, this eventually ends up working out for Rapunzel and the prince, and they end up together. But the witch definitely would have had more luck if she had let Rapunzel experience certain things, you know. Not necessarily saying that she should have let her have a boyfriend or anything like that, you know, and go past that into... Anyway. But children, especially teenagers around that age, are going to rebel if you tell them you can't do something. And this, I mean, it's a time for them to experience certain things so they can make better choices in the future. Without those experiences, they may not necessarily make the best choices. Obviously, in Rapunzel's case, with becoming pregnant. But the witch's whole dilemma was, how can I keep my child safe, and how can I keep them from becoming hurt? And obviously the answer is that you can't protect somebody from everything. and expect, especially a child, you cannot protect a child from harm and expect them to be effective and self-reliant in the world when they're on their own. No matter, as a parent, no matter how much you try to warn and protect your children, there's certain things that they have to learn for themselves. And the witch wasn't going to allow Rapunzel to do that, and so that's why she made some of the choices she made. But now okay, so my parents were kind of protective, but not nearly to the extent as my best friend. We're just going to call her Azumi. I did get Azumi's permission to talk about this in this video, and honestly, there's some serious parallels between her dad and the witch as far as the links to protect her. Actually, Tangled is one of her favorite Disney movies, ironically. But let me just start, because we've been friends since junior high, and he had this weird thing about not letting her go to the mall by herself. Basically, if she wanted to go to the mall, either her mom had to go with her, or we had to tell her parents that my mom would be staying with us in order for us to even hang out together at the mall alone. Her mom typically would wait like in the food court area for us, and she would let us go wander off on our own, but we still had a parent there the entire time and didn't really feel like we could spend too much time at the mall because we had somebody waiting on us, you know? Anytime that we wanted to have a sleepover, okay, so obviously this did extend all the way from junior high through the time that most of us were in college, for the record. If she wanted to stay the night with us, we would have to get permission like a week in advance, and even sometimes last second her dad would say, well, why can't you just stay here? Why can't they come over instead? So we'd end up changing plans last second and end up staying with Azumi instead of staying at our house. Like I said, that went clear through junior high, all the way through, well, basically until she moved out of her parents' house, but we're getting there. It's just crazy, and I'm trying to, I should have made a list, but, so occasionally for like a day, my family would go out to my grandparents' house, which they only lived like 20 minutes outside of town. And we would just go swimming for a few hours and have a cookout, grill some hamburgers, have some hot dogs. No big deal, right? Shouldn't be anyway. Most of the time that I tried to help Azumi get out of the house and just come hang out with me, most of the time her parents said no. Even though they knew my parents, they say they trusted my parents, they say they trusted me, and they trusted Azumi, but they would still say no and wouldn't let her no matter what. And it's just crazy. About halfway through high school, she started dating this guy, and her dad was super overprotective of her having a boyfriend, and he knew. Basically, I mean, it didn't really bother me because my parents would always make sure that we kept the door open, and if it wasn't open, they would just randomly pop in to make sure we weren't doing anything, That part of everything didn't bother me, because, I expected that since my parents did that. But with Azumi, I mean, they barely could hold hands in front of her dad. Actually, this is kind of a funny story. There was one day, the three of us were hanging out in Azumi's bedroom after school, and we were just kind of like looking through some animes, trying to find something to watch, and all of a sudden Azumi's dad walked in, and he had a cattle prod out. If you don't know what that is, basically it sends electric shocks to a cow. But anyway, he came in with a cattle prod, and Azumi's boyfriend at the time literally like flipped over to the other side of the bed and was trying to duck away from him. It was so funny. I'm not even gonna lie. I don't have too many fond memories of Azumi's boyfriend that I'm talking about right now, but that was absolutely hilarious. Just seeing the look on his face was hilarious. Um, Now, obviously, like I said, Izumi's dad was very protective over her with her having a boyfriend, and honestly, he was it was rightfully so. He was Izumi's first boyfriend, and it turned out that he was very emotionally and mentally abusive to her. Come to find out, with some of this she didn't tell me, and I wish she had, but there's nothing we can do about it now. But her boyfriend, anytime they broke up, had an argument, I got dragged into the middle of it, and I would end up talking them in, or helping them talk it out, and they would get back together. Seemed like everything was fine, but apparently there were some times where Azumi just said that she was done and she wanted to break up, and apparently he would threaten suicide, hence why it was emotionally abusive. Um, I mean, after they did break up, he was constantly like stalking her around school, and there was at one point where we were honestly where Izumi was honestly considering getting a restraining order. you know we're in high school. um that shouldn't really be a thing or concern that we should have at this time in our lives. Thank God she had never actually done anything with the guy to end up in the same position Rapunzel was in with getting pregnant. Thank goodness. But anyway, senior year. So our last year of high school, Azumi and I both were in choir, no big deal. We also started off the year both taking AP psychology because we were both very, very interested in it, and it was the only way to take another year of psychology. But we both really enjoyed it. And one of the things that our teacher did, which I still love that he did this, but at the same time, it was frustrating at the time. He would let us come in at 7 o'clock in the morning to make test corrections to attempt to get some points back from our test. If like we missed a question, he would let us come in and do test corrections to get points back. But the only way to get points back was to fully write out the question, put the correct answer, and explain why it was the correct answer. So, it took a lot of time. But one of the things that my mom had offered to do for Izumi several different times was to pick her up early in the morning and take us both to school so we could do test corrections. My mom offered to do that every single time that I went in to do test corrections, and she offered the same thing to Izumi, but every single time Izumi's dad said no. And she ended up having to drop the class because she wasn't going to pass it. Partially because she couldn't get in to do test corrections. Big shocker there. If you aren't in the US, you probably don't know what I'm talking about, but we have to take a test. Well, I guess we don't technically have to, but to get into college, we have to take a test called the ACT, which is basically, I guess, our college entrance exam or whatever you want to call it. I ended up taking it at least 5 times, I think, and my mom offered several times to actually pay for Izumi to take the test. I mean, it's not a expensive test, but it's not exactly cheap either. But my mom was willing to pay for the test for her, so that way if Azumi wanted to go to college, she could at least have that score if she wanted to go. It didn't necessarily mean that she was going to college. By the way, she didn't, but that's beyond the point. Her dad would not let her take the test. Don't know why. I wish I did, but he would not allow her to take the test at all. That one still puzzles me, even though I know her dad pretty well now, and he seems pretty chill when I talk to him now. But let me get back to the part where I'm comparing her life to Rapunzel. So, it's been, gosh, I think 8 years since Azumi and I graduated high school now. And so I have a fiance that I've mentioned several times on here. Azumi had a fiance, or I say had because she's now married, but she and her fiance decided to go to the courthouse without telling either of their parents and go ahead and get married. Apparently, they didn't realize that their marriage in the courthouse would be in the newspaper. So her family found out that way instead of through her. Probably not the best idea. But they got married in September, and then like a week later, apparently Azumi had actually used that as leverage to move out of her parents' house. It's so sad that my best friend thought that she had to basically say, well, I already got married to get out of her parents' house. Honestly, that still blows my mind. But at the same time, I'm just like, he was so protective that there's no way he would have allowed it to happen. Just like the witch never allowed Rapunzel to have any dating experience. And let's be honest, Rapunzel really lucked out with meeting the prince and ending up having a happily ever after with the prince. And I'm so glad that Azumi found a good guy who treats her well, and she married him instead of her first boyfriend. That would have been a terrible situation. but but yeah, honestly, I mean, I get why some parents are so protective, but at the same time, it's like, isn't the whole job of being a parent to prepare your kids to be on their own? And if you don't let them do that, how are they supposed to take care of themselves financially, emotionally? I mean, everything. They can't. If you protect them from too much, they can't. I mean, like I already stated, my parents were kind of protective. Um, they particularly didn't like my ex-boyfriend, which honestly I completely understand why now. Didn't at the time. Didn't care. He was the only guy that I had in my sights at the time. And so that's all that mattered to me. But if my parents hadn't let me just experience whatever was going to happen with him, so long as I didn't do something stupid, they, honestly, I can't thank them enough for handling that the way they did, to be honest with you. Because the one thing my dad was super protective about with that boyfriend was he did not want me going to school in the same town we live in just so I could live apart from my ex-boyfriend. Honestly, that is probably the best thing that my dad ever did as far as encouraging me and pushing me to do something to protect me. At least he did it in a way that was helpful to me, because honestly, I don't know what would have happened. I would like to think that my ex wouldn't have talked me out of going to school, working on getting a degree or anything like that, but I don't know. I can tell you I'm not the same person I was when I was with him at all. I mean, obviously personality doesn't change a whole lot, but there's certain things that I can spot a lot easier about people now than I could when I was with him, and I've grown a lot from that relationship. So I'm very thankful for my parents not allowing me to do anything stupid, but allowing me to experience what I needed to become a stronger person, if that makes sense. um, but yeah, and both me and Izumi's case, our ex-boyfriends were emotionally abusive and mentally abusive in different ways. Well, similar ways, but different ways. But my parents let it play out without without allowing me to do something stupid to ruin my life. Zumi's parents, on the other hand, were so overly protective about it, and thank goodness she did what she needed to do to get out of that relationship when she did. And thank goodness we both have ended up with good guys. Honestly, I'm so proud of Izumi for not doing anything with her ex, because who knows what would have happened. But we can't always get lucky. And when I told Izumi about this and was asking her questions, I was specifically asking her, okay, is there anything you don't want me to mention in this video at all? Because I can leave it out, work around it, whatever I need to do to talk about it. And she honestly could not remember a whole lot to tell me if there was anything that she wanted me to leave out on this. And so I just went with what I could remember. But the one thing she did tell me for sure was that because her parents were so overprotective, just in general, she felt like she could never be honest with them about what she was doing, who would be there, what was actually going on. Because typically, if she did, then she wouldn't have gotten to do anything, including spend the night with her friends, whether they lived in town or not. Which, honestly, just, I still don't get that part either. I really, really don't. But for whatever reason, most of the time, we could not get her to come stay the night with us. We had to go spend the night over there. But yeah, she just felt like she couldn't be honest. And obviously, to some extent, Rapunzel probably felt the exact same way, especially once the prince came to visit her. And if he visited her multiple times, then of course she probably felt the exact same way. Like I said, to some extent, my parents were protective about, particularly about my ex-boyfriend. And there were times where I felt like I couldn't be honest with them either, because he would talk me into hanging out at his apartment when I wasn't allowed to. Or we would end up going somewhere that wasn't where we said we would be. And it felt like I couldn't be honest because I got pressured into doing something that I knew was against my parents' wishes. So that's a whole thing. And honestly, honesty has become one of the biggest things between me and my parents now after all of that. So I should have asked Izumi if she felt the same way, but I'm sure to some extent she does feel like she can be a little more honest now that she is living separately from her parents. I keep saying her parents. Her mom actually passed away this past December, so it's just her dad now. But I'm sure to some extent with certain things she can be a little more open with her dad about stuff going on. But at the same time, she and I both are very bad about bottling things up to, I guess, not let others see what's really going on, so that way we don't make anybody worry about us. It's a really bad habit. Really need to break it, but is what it is. Um, but yeah, either way, if you've learned anything from, if we've learned anything from the story of Rapunzel and me and Azumi's experiences, it's that you can't protect somebody from everything. There are certain things that people need to experience in order to become stronger and better than they were before. And if you don't let them have those experiences, they aren't going to learn those things. But yeah, if you want more information about the princess story to this, please go check out Pixie Simster. If you want to hear the full story of the Brothers Grimm version of Rapunzel, please go check out Caffeinated Sims. Both of their stuff will be linked down below. And at the very end of the video, I will have both of their videos linked if you want to just click there. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this speed build and me talking about Rapunzel in a metaphorical way. Please like this video. If you liked this video, please give it a like. Leave any comments down below. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. I post a new video every Monday and Friday, with the exception of this video, of course. And I'll see you guys next time. Bye, guys.